Hello, I'm Hamish Tyler, and I'm the administrator for the Visual and Performing Arts here at the Monterey County Office of Education, and I'm also station manager for KMST. It is my absolute delight and privilege this morning to interview a dear old friend and confidant and music educator, Dr. Robert Klevan. And Rob, I can remember all the way back to the late 70s when we first started this long journey together, when you came from the University of Pacific and grew up in Stockton and then moved into the Marysville area and migrated down to Pebble Beach in the Robert Louis Stevenson School, where we started kind of a dynamic new program in the private school. And 30 some odd years later, after a lot of wonderful times and educating a lot of really bright young people, we went off in different directions. I came over here to the county office, and you went to the University of California, Santa Cruz, and to the Monterey Jazz Festival. Right. And Rob, one of the things that I've always admired in you is your dedication and your love and compassion for not only education, but music specifically. How did you first get involved in music?
Well, that's a great question. By the way, when you mentioned the 70s, I had a lot more hair then, which is
oh boy, didn't we all?
But it's funny because my parents always appreciated and had a love for music, and actually my grandfather, who was a Monterey fisherman, Italian fisherman, always played opera records, and so I was surrounded by it as a lad. And I had an uncle here in Monterey who was a professional trumpet player after the war, and he kind of got me interested in jazz, gave me tickets. I was in high school, gave me tickets to the Monterey Jazz Festival, 1971. I came out with a couple buddies, stayed at my aunt's house, and went over to the festival. It was a Sunday afternoon, so it was all the students in the national band, or then they called it the California All-Stars then. And they had all these guest artists with them, and I just was enamored with it. I was just so thrilled by what I heard and saw that it kind of encouraged me to keep up with my piano lessons. And unfortunately, the high school I attended in Stockton, you couldn't. It was tough to be a musician and an athlete, so. I was playing football, so I had to kind of give up violin, and which was unfortunate. But I stayed with piano, and I stayed with my lessons through high school, and decided when I finally enrolled at the University of Pacific, I knew they had an outstanding conservatory, and I thought, well, I'll try music. I was pre-law for a while there, and thought, I'd make a lousy lawyer. And all it took really was another teacher. Once I got to the university, they were very encouraging. I didn't have as great a background as some of my peers, but they were very encouraging, and they kind of steered me towards what I needed as far as harmony and theory and all those sorts of things I had never had before. And it's just surprising. It was enrolling in the band. I'd never played in the band. They needed a bass drummer in the marching band at UOP, and I'd always been on the football field, not with the marching band, and I had a great time. And it was just being in that sort of ensemble, that team spirit, where unlike the football team where I sat a lot on the bench and watched people play, everybody played.
Yeah,
it's the sort of thing where there's no bench sitters, and from that I picked up a flute and started taking flute lessons, and piano was still my major. I was focusing on that, spending a lot of time on piano now as this passion was growing in me, and as I heard my peers play this wonderful music, and they can do it, I can do it, and it was one of those things I was just totally devoted to playing, and I got as many ensembles as I could. I always sang in a church choir, but I got into the choirs at UOP, and next thing I know, I was in a flute octet, and the jazz band was looming. I thought, I'll try. Of course, I didn't make it my first year because I didn't know much about jazz chording and things like that, but I took lessons and just really became enamored with that music it grew, and the band was fabulous at the time, and they brought in special guest artists. I remember Cannonball Adderley came to campus, Clark Terry, and Duke Ellington, and these icons. They were all so nice to us, and next thing I know, I'm really focusing on jazz too. And my second year, I made the band, and that was it. I was hooked from then on. Once you start playing, it's hard to give it up. And then of course, at UOP, my wife Nikki was there, and we decided to get married, and I thought I better get a real job. That was really the impetus for my focusing in education, because there weren't a lot of choices then. You either were music therapy, which I did try a little bit of, a very difficult job, but those people deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, people that stay in the music therapy. Really tough, but and the rewards aren't quite as much evident as would be in music teaching. Anyway, tried my hand in that. Had to decide would I be a performance major. A little nervous about playing. My recitals went well, and then I always liked working with kids. I was a swim coach and taught swimming, and I thought, gee, maybe I'll look into education. And once again, it was a person who was just so fired up about it. My mentor, Dr. McQuarrie, who was there, and I had a long talk with him, and he convinced me this is something I should try. And once I took his first course and started working with kids, I was hooked. I started from then on to see the value of the arts. My wife was an art major anyway, in young people's lives. And when you help young people through the arts, it's something they take with them the rest of their life. 2, 3, and. So I looked at my own life and said, this has become a big part of why I'm so happy at the time, and maybe it's time to share.
Right.
I got a couple lucky breaks. An opening occurred in the Lodi area for an elementary band director at 3 schools. It was through the diocese schools, so I started the band programs there, and they fed into the local Catholic high school in Stockton, St. Mary's High. So it was a bit different. I'd show up if they had mass. There was nobody in band that day. Where's everybody? But we ended up the year. We started with nothing. We ended up the year with probably over 150 kids playing horns. Not very well.
Yes.
But the next year got better,
Right.
and
Right.
Marysville opened up to me, and a colleague I had at University Pacific was going to a new high school in that area and wanted me to come try directing the old high school. When I came in the spring, the band was fabulous, 80-member band.
Yeah.
And, yeah, this will be great. And when I came back in the fall, there were only 20 of them. The rest had gone with him to the new school.
Oh, no.
But those I saw as challenges.
Sure.
And 20 kids, but they were very enthusiastic, and they really are the ones who kept me in teaching because I was new, but they kept saying, "You're doing fine. We
Right.
like you. Your encouragement is great, and your enthusiasm is what we really like." And I started coaching then too, swimming, which was really the only reason the principal told me when I left. The only reason I hired you is because of your swimming background. I need a coach. So I always remembered that.
Yeah.
He was a great guy to work for. Very encouraging and positive, and he's the one that allowed me to go down to the elementary schools and start teaching elementary band and middle school and help with that program so they would feed in. So the second year I had 60 kids in the band. We came on a tour, and we ended up at Stevenson School as part of a tour in the Monterey area, because I knew the Monterey area very well, kind of growing up in both Stockton and Monterey. And this private school said, "We want a band program," and the rest is history. I met you, and we took it from there, and never regretted it. It was just a great place to work. And I think the last year I was there, we had over 200 kids in ensembles, and both doing. They could do music and art and theater and radio. It was just a great example of what can be done. And I hope someday the public schools, because I started in public school teaching, would follow the lead of some of the private schools as far as scheduling goes, and allow the arts more time during the day. I don't think you need really to have this long or the short day where they just take solid courses and they're done. Students are done at 1:30 in the afternoon, and they have nothing to do until sports. I think they could look at an 8-9 period day, shorter class times, give kids more chances, more options, more electives, and I think it would improve all around.
Absolutely.
Teachers would be happier. I'm always for paying teachers more. I think they should be paid more if they work more. That's only right. But if the day were extended, you ended classes at 3:30, had a little break, and then you went right to sports. You'd see less crime. I think you'd see more interest in school. The arts would grow. I just, it's like a utopia. I see it working better. Kind of got off your question, but.
No, absolutely. And Rob is very, very modest about his accomplishments at Stevenson. At one point or another, you impacted virtually everyone, students, faculty, and administrators, through the teaching of the arts or your coaching. And one of the things that this program, Rob, is what we're trying to zero in on is leadership. And how is it that you manage this? Every place you go to, and it's not just, people say, well, there are certain heroes. There are just certain people that can do this sort of thing, or certain people are willing to work harder than others. What is the key to your success? I mean, everywhere you've gone, you've engaged people. You've engaged students, administrators, faculty alike.
Well, a lot of, there's always obstacles, but I think people have to recognize that just because someone says it can't be done doesn't mean it can't be done. And it started in my college career where they told me I couldn't I couldn't finish in 4 years, and I couldn't get a credential in 4 years, and I couldn't pay my tuition. I'm going to have to take loans out. And I said, I can work and go to school. I go to school in the summer. I can get it done. When I would enroll for 21 units or something, they'd say, you can only take 16. And I go, well, let me petition, let me try. And the first time I managed it, and the administration there said, well, okay, we'll allow it again. And the next thing you know, it just was almost automatic. I don't know if people have done that before, but I think what a lot of people are stopped by someone was saying, well, you just can't do that. And, there's got to be a way. So when I came to Marysville and we were going to march with 20 kids, how can you march with 20 kids? Well, we're going to have 4 rows or 5 rows of 4. And we'll parade march, and we'll do figures, and we'll do a new show for every game. It's going to be not quite like you're used to, but this is a start. And from that it grew. And the same is true. But at the core of it all, really, is you have to have that belief that what you're doing is important, and persevere. And if it's passion, if students see that you have a passion for it, then they gain a passion for it. I see a lot of teachers now in my new role as the Jazz Education Director going around to schools, and we have some outstanding teachers in our area. And I'm not afraid to go up to a young teacher or something and say, put a little something into it. I just see you up there, well, it's kind of drab, and I wouldn't be happy sitting in that rehearsal. So it's almost like you're an actor each time. At Stevenson, before the band would come in, I might be tired, I might not be my usual self or something, but when they'd come in, I'd just kind of suck it up and say, all right, they're here, and we're gonna get something accomplished today. So I think that comes from, I did have along the way, as I mentioned, some wonderful teachers, not only at UOP, but at DePaul, where I started my master's, and then at University of Texas. People who are so enthused about and energetic about this field that we're in. Because unlike any other, the arts, students come usually because they want to. I've had courses when I was at Marysville, the chorus was the big dumping ground. They're there because it's the last shot for them. Go into chorus. So I'd say, hey, you're here. Let's do something. Let me hear you sing. And I'd have kids say, I don't sing. Well, everybody sings. Maybe you don't sing well, but that's why I'm here. Maybe I'll help you. And I could just see it turn kids around. Same with swimming. I get kids like that they be put in there, and if you just gave up on them because they're giving up on themselves, and just make them go over there and sit and be quiet, nothing gets accomplished. But I always saw it as a kind of a challenge with those kids to really pull them out and show them that there's more to life than just a 9-to-5 job and TV at night and things like that. So I think back to your question, it would have to be, I've always had a passion for what I do. This is really important. You have to believe in it. That's why I've gotten involved in the state music educating programs, the national. IAJ is gone now, but I'm on the California Alliance for Jazz board. Because I've just seen the good that this does for kids. You just see it in their face when even if they get a measure right, they play something right, and you're there to encourage them. That's great. All right, let's keep working. There's something that clicks in there that tells you, keep at it. This is good.
I might also add, Rob, that your willingness to professionally develop is a real example for all the artists and all the teachers out there that you persevered and that you perfected yourself, your instrument as a teacher, by getting your master's, going on getting your PhD. And I think that, combined with your perseverance, your passion, and your commitment, again, honoring the whole professional development, of which the County Office of Education, that's one of our primary goals here, is to do that with all of our teachers, with all of our staff. Now, you've been heavily involved with the California music educators on all kinds of different levels. We know from the neurological standpoint that there's huge impacts in taking the arts, specifically music and theater arts, where there is now data coming back to us about achievement, success, irrefutable. But yet we still hear that the arts are an elective, that they are a frill, that they are not necessary. How do you react to that?
I've been fighting that my whole teaching career, over 30 years, with Prop 13, when budgets were cut, and one less music teacher here, and your budget's gone, and you're just wondering, is this worth it? Is there any value to what I do? Again, it's really the students. All that is peripheral when you're in the classroom working with kids, and you're seeing what you're doing, you're seeing the importance of it. But you're right to bring that up regarding the data that's there, because as an officer with the California Music Educators Association, I'm now a past president, I came on board as president at a time where the report came out about the sounds of silence in California schools, public schools, and the arts, and the lack of funding and the numbers that have dropped significantly, over 500,000 fewer students taking the arts, taking music in particular. I was just shocked that it'd be that number, and I had to say, gosh, we've taken so many steps backwards. I had a better education in the 60s and 50s than my grandchildren are going to have in the future. And as I started talking to people in school boards and other organizations, they saw it as, the testing, the No Child Left Behind, as a mandate that they had to bring test scores up. And now that as we've learned more and the data's there, we're able to go to school boards and say, look, with the arts, there's data support that with the arts, students are more apt to want to learn, it transfers over this development of the brain, neurological development, transfers over to other subjects. It's an incentive to keep kids in schools. They found out in LA County, I'm sure you're aware, the biggest unified school districts in the world, that their dropout rate had increased significantly once students were required to take 2 English courses. I'm not saying that English is a bad thing, but could you sit through 2 English courses? I mean, I don't think I could.
Yes.
Attention span is only so long. When you're talking about the adolescent mind, it's even shorter than. So they interviewed students. Why would you? Well, the only reason I came to school was because of art, or because of the theater, or because I love band, or maybe because I was a football or played basketball. These were things that were important to kids in the schools, and it was an incentive to get them there. And then yet we've always battled this secondary, elective choice. They're not as important. People have to remember that in No Child Left Behind, legislation which I think has been a detriment to education in this country. But part of it is that the arts are important and should not be supplanted. It shouldn't be left out of the overall picture. There's this fear of testing that, failure, our district fails and we look bad and all that. But, we got to look at what's important to the students. I just came back from Japan, and we always kind of look at what's going on in Japan. Of course, they go to school all year. And there was this huge emphasis, as you remember, in the last decade on math in Japan. And there's still strong emphasis. But now they're realizing that that we have to develop a generation now where there's some creativity, especially if it's going to get into the industries and the marketplace. Creativity is as important as a high math score, because a math score, being good in math isn't good enough anymore. There has to be a way to think through that and beyond it. And I think our country will catch up. I'm very hopeful about this next election. I think we have, 2 excellent candidates. I won't say who I'm supporting, but and I think they both will look at education carefully and maybe take us in a new direction. I think one will do it stronger than the other. Not political here, but there's kind of hope that we might see get on board with what's happening in a lot of the rest of the world, and see that we need to develop the creative mind as part of the whole picture,
Right.
both physical, creative, and of course, they do have to have a great command of the English language and math skills and science skills as well. It's all important,
Yes.
but it's no more important than math and than having this creative part. And again, back to that, my role in CMEA, we always push that education has to be standards-based. We just can't start hiring people, emergency credentials, throw them out there,
Yeah.
wave a baton. That's not teaching. I have a colleague who said sometimes they hire people just to see if they have a pulse. Okay, you have a pulse, you teach the band.
Yes. Yes.
No, we need qualified teachers, and it's folks like us at the university level. Unfortunately, Santa Cruz doesn't have a music ed degree. I wish they did.
Mm.
But a lot of my colleagues who I work with at other institutions are really trying to get the most creative people into teaching and try and develop music for generations to come. Because quite honestly, we're getting old.
Yeah.
I go to the conferences, there's a lot of bald old.
That's right. Or you go to concerts, you go to musical theater offerings, and the same kind of thing. And that, from my standpoint, Rob, it's really disturbing because I've advocated for the last few months now for an almost complete overhaul of how we approach the arts in the state of California, and it's almost like a Marshall Plan. The devastation has been so thorough that we really need to go back to ground zero to do our planning. My daughter, our granddaughter, goes to one of the foremost and affluent districts in our county, probably in our state. But I compare what I had in the late 50s, early 60s, and I'm dating myself here, but with what she has available in a top-notch program district. She can take, Rob, 2 out of the 4 arts, major arts, 2 that are standards-based, that are rigorous and disciplined,
Right.
and can be assessed, and you can find out the progress that she's making. 2.
Yeah.
I had 4. So you just have to wonder what it is that we're making available to our youngsters. And I certainly hope that the election, at the very least, anybody watching, please get out and vote.
Right.
I mean, people need to understand the drastic, really how important this all really is this year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what, to change the tone a little bit, Rob's also a world traveler, a bon vivant, a published author.
Yeah.
Rob, we have many, many interesting and different moments as educators. Can you give us a few of your favorite anecdotes? He's also an incredibly good storyteller as well.
Oh my. Well, I thought about writing a book once about some of the crazy things that have happened on trips with kids. And,
touring.
I love taking, getting kids on the bus and traveling somewhere and performing outside of our own little sort of hub. It's always great to perform for parents, but sometimes you really want to test yourself and see, are we really that good? I mean, let's go out and hear other groups. And when we would travel, and this, I've traveled with you, it was always great for our students to see either professionals at work, so the professional theater, or go to concerts with professionals. But just as important was to see other groups our own age, other high schools, particularly in their performances, and to be able to share back and forth. We continue to do this with the Monterey Jazz Festival with our national band and our county honor band, all-star band, and our honor vocal jazz ensemble. We just got back from a wonderful trip to Japan with 30 of our Monterey County students, and I could tell you some stories there. But I have to think of some of these band trips where kids would just do crazy things.
Yeah.
I remember eating breakfast once. We were staying at this hotel in Los Angeles. We performed, the band and the jazz band, I think, was on this trip. at a festival in the LA area. And I think we were in Burbank. You know, you find the nicest hotel you can afford, not usually too expensive. And I'm eating
basic
it.
2-star.
Yeah. Something out of the corner of my eye. I look over to the pools, big splash, but don't think anything of it. And then again, and finally the manager came over to me and said, "Are you with the band from Pebble Beach?" Yep. Well, the kids are jumping off the 4th floor into the pool. What? And sure enough, I run up there, and they're all lined up, and they're having to step up on this rail, and they're all wet, and it's slippery, and I mean, if they fall, it's sure death, you know. But they're hanging on to this pole, and then they're jumping into the pool, and I remember stopping them and saying, "What do you think? What are you doing?" They said, "Well, we're leaving today, so I figured they couldn't kick us out." One of the kids said. You know, stuff like that happens, but those things you can deal with.
Yes.
You know, some things are not as fun to deal with that happen, but you always have to remember that you're the adult, and you take care of those things on trips like that. This latest trip I took with the kids to Japan, the exchanges we have with their students, I mean, I wish I should actually video it to show people. We put all our trombones in a room with all their trombones, for an example. Nobody speaks English other than our kids.
Yes.
They don't speak and we don't speak Japanese. And our kids are supposed to lead a clinic. You know, they're standing there with their trombones, and there's like 2 minutes of silence. Our kids are kind of all gathered around, what do we do? And I'll go in there and I'll say, well, why don't you show them what you did at camp? You know, how'd you warm up? Any tunes you play that maybe you can teach them fast? Just how about getting them in a circle? And usually somebody steps forward and from our group and says, and they do it immediately. They line up in a circle and they play something and they play it back, and there's a little smile, and then they start doing a scale, and they do the scale back, and they take the mouthpiece off and they buzz together, and then it starts moving, and you come back in 10, 15 minutes, they're laughing. You know, another half hour they're playing a tune. Another half hour there's one of our guys on the board writing something out, and then they're ready to play it. You don't really need language. You have music.
Yes.
It's a cliche, I know, but it is universal. And we've seen the same thing when we traveled to Europe with our national kids. You know, you don't really need to have this communication other than, this is one cute story. I was working with the vocal jazz kids, and I was writing down people they should listen to, because I'm a big advocate of listening to music, especially jazz. If you want to play jazz, you need to listen. But a lot of times kids don't have direction as, well, who do I listen to? So I was writing names down. I put down, these people are dead, but you can still get, alive, and ensembles. And I had our students in the vocal jazz kind of throwing out names. And finally, I did manage to, one of the people that was with us, Eddie's wife, Mitsuru Mendenhall, speaks Japanese, and I said, would you ask them, do they need us to write it down? So it's in English. And she asked them that, and they all pulled their cell phones out, all of them. Took a picture, they got it. So they don't have to write anything anymore. Boy, that's nice. You know, they can just get it.
Extraordinary.
So to reach people around the world, you know, I thought we should be doing something online at the Monterey Jazz Festival. We have this new project, digital music education project, and we provide interviews with artists like Dave Brubeck and Bob Mintzer and Jim Hall and some of the most famous people, Ornette Coleman, you know, some of the most famous jazz musicians alive. They provide a tip for a young player, recordings every young player should listen to and why. And by the way, from there you can go right to iTunes or Borders or Amazon and buy it. You can go right to their website as well. And then we just said, you know, who are your influences also? I mean, you know, Dave Brubeck saying, well, Stravinsky was a big influence of mine. You know, if I'm a huge Dave Brubeck fan, or you know, a pianist, I'm going right to hear Rite of Spring.
Sure.
Because he said I should.
You
know, and also we have some videos online of some clinics we've done with Christian McBride last year and Terry Lynn Carrington. So we realized that if this is going out over the net, some of the people in Japan, we told them about, they're very excited. So we're going to get it translated so that they can understand,
That's terrific.
and that's kind of our next, that's the next frontier for us
Okay,
as far as our
okay.
music ed program.
Now, through the Jazz Festival, the clinicians program is still very much viable throughout the county with most schools participating. Is that still the case?
We have a number of schools, yeah. We have over 30 schools that participate. We
Wow.
provide 7 instrumental musicians, clinicians, and 2 vocals clinicians that meet once a month starting in November. They meet with the kids. So the beauty of it is, I've seen these in the past where, and I don't want to put other organizations down, but they'll send musicians out and they'll play for you.
Yes.
I guess I gave it away.
Yeah.
And that's great. It's, a professional quartet, string quartet, or what have you, come in and play, and the kids sit and listen, and they ask questions. There's a lot that can be learned with that.
Yes.
I'm not, but our approach is to have a musician in each section of the band with their horn, whatever it might be, sitting with the kids, saying, try this. Let me hear you play. They play together. Here's some advice. Try this. Wait. Do this. Wait. That was wrong. Wait. And they do it with a smile.
Yeah.
There's I remember when they used to come to Stevenson, our guitarists were always worried because Bruce Foreman, the guitar instructor, is such a big figure.
Yeah.
What's he going to be like? And he's tough.
Yeah.
And it's fine. He comes in November. He's with a smile. Guys, I want you to learn this. In December, if you haven't looked at it, he's going to point it out to you.
Yeah. Right.
I came and I showed you this. You didn't look at it. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Exactly.
But they learn that way. But for the most part, what happens, it's actually always happens. It's very positive feedback to the students, and to have a pro that you can buy recordings of, sitting next to you and telling you,
Right.
Right then,
This is literally hands-on.
literally hands-on.
Yeah.
I've seen them grab and say, "Hey, here's an alternate fingering. You probably didn't know this on the sax."
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Well,
Yeah.
now you do.
It's phenomenal. I've seen it happen.
It's a great program, and that's kind of the heart of our
Sure.
education program. I want to be able to reach beyond the county. That's why this digital project has
Right.
got a lot of my focus lately, because I think we can do the same thing to the folks up in Santa Cruz County, San Benito County,
Absolutely.
down LA County,
Right.
all over the world.
Right.
And why not? We're hoping to link to other education organizations that offer something similar. Jazz
Right,
Lincoln
right.
Center, the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild in Pittsburgh, Lionel Hampton up in Idaho. There's all these great jazz ed programs that our kids could take advantage of as well.
Right. Right.
So,
Rob, I've just been signaled. We've got 5 minutes left, and it's kind of hard to capture all that you've done in this brief amount of time. But what's ahead for Rob Klevan?
well, I'm getting up in age.
Oh, Lordy.
No, my plans are kind of, I love teaching at the University of California at Santa Cruz. The wind ensemble there, I started that 11 years ago. It seems to be.
Wow.
It's over 70 students involved normally each year, and then I also direct the big band. I'd love to get a little more involved in the university. Of course, the budget's tight all over,
Right,
and they're in the
right.
same predicament as the state's universities as well. But I'm happy in my role right now, and it's the same sort of thing. I'm mentoring teachers, future teachers. I'm kind of encouraging certain students. I did have a music ed survey course for grad program, but I'm trying to encourage students to go into teaching, because we're going to need music teachers. There was a time, really, just for a moment there, when we got the money from the state, that I thought we were making the right turn, and of course the budget now is kind of questionable.
Yes. Yes.
Which is unfortunate. But at that turn, where there were jobs opening and people were thinking about hiring, and in Monterey County, in fact, we did hire for the first time in how many years,
Yeah,
elementary music teachers. But as I said, we're all getting older, and
Yeah.
Someday I'll retire. So I hope that some young stallion will come in and take over and give it the same sort of enthusiasm, and take it to the next level, either at the university or with the Monterey Jazz Festival. And then I'll go play golf and fish. And actually, what I'd really love to do is practice again. I haven't practiced.
Oh my goodness! And then write your memoirs and.
Oh yeah, I've got that on the back burner too. I love writing, and It's always been kind of a hobby for me, but
Okay.
who knows, maybe I'll focus more on that.
Yeah.
But I'll always have my hand in music. I'll be a retired member of MCAET and the local jazz organizations too.
Uh-huh. And for all of our teachers out there, especially our beginning teachers, some final words of advice.
Well, you know, especially for beginning teachers, that first year, everyone tells you it's tough if you make it through that, but it's absolutely true. You make it through that first year, you're on your way, but don't think you're alone. There's a lot of us who've taught a long time who are willing to help, and we don't want anything for it other than to see them succeed. A lot of times I know young teachers are reluctant to ask.
Mm-hmm.
I was.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ask them. I thought I knew it all. You
Right,
know?
right.
But
We
when
all did, yeah.
I did ask, when I finally asked, I asked people like Don Schomber when he was at MPC for help, you know, repertoire and things like that. What should I be doing? And then, of course, my wonderful colleagues I had at Stevenson were very encouraging and such. And at Marysville, too. Another colleague there, Eric Hammer, who's now director of bands at UOP. You know, all along the way, these people helped me, and now, you know, it's my job to pass that on. So, to those who have taught a while, just the same thing. When you walk in that classroom, it's a new day every day. So stay encouraged and enthusiastic about what we do is really important.
Right,
Just remember that.
right. Well, it's been a delight and an absolute
Always good to
privilege,
see you.
Rob. Thank you very, very much. And for local legends in Monterey County, thank you, Dr. Rob Klevan, again.
Thanks, Amy.
And to remind you also that you could go to iTunes. So we will be electronically viewed
wonderful.
throughout the world, hopefully,
Great.
with this show. So again, thank you. And that'll do it.
Thanks for having us.